Thank you guys for coming so much. I really appreciate it. For those of you that don't know, online or in person, my name is Hannah Hinkle. I'm the Access to Recovery Chair. And so in honor of National Recovery Month, All for Knox, our team, is hosting a free hybrid 6-part weekly series. This particular session is focused on one of the most important, but sometimes the most unsung parts of the recovery journey. And that's understanding how to support a loved one who is struggling with substance use or entering treatment. We know that when someone we care about is hurting, it impacts the entire family like a wave. And when I say family, I mean that in all the ways it can exist. So not just by biology, but by choice, friendship, and by the bonds we form when we love and support one another. So this can bring up questions such as, how can I help and encourage them? How do I support them without enabling them? How do I set boundaries without pushing them away? What should I expect when my loved one goes into treatment? And where can I, as a family member or a support person, turn for help myself? So today, our panel of subject matter experts will unpack these questions. And so with that, I'd like to ask our panelists to go one by one and introduce themselves and where they're from and how they contribute to this topic. I'll start with you, Jennifer.
My name is Jennifer Rokisky, and I work at Renew Clinic, and we serve the families by having group meetings on Wednesdays, and we have like a support group, and we have curriculum that we go through, and we also meet with them one-on-one if there's a specific situation, get them hooked up to intervention resources and different resources like that, and hopefully just help them learn how to walk this journey out with their loved one.
Thank you.
My name is Bill Lee. I'm a mostly retired addiction therapist. After 40 plus years in the field, a lot of different treatment programs. Excuse me, I'm currently doing 2 outpatient groups at a local psychiatrist's office and a family support group at the Metro Drug Coalition, the Gateway. Those keep me pretty busy along with my grandkids. And I'm in recovery myself.
My name is Vince Johnson. It's my wife, Karen. And we have a PALS group, which is Parents of Addicted Loved Ones. And it's a support group, basically of parents helping parents. So we meet each Tuesday night at Fellowship Church on the Brook Pike. And it's the more that we can really, I think, break down the educational proponent or how addiction affects a family, as well as the support time to really discuss what the issues that are going on in their homes, we can help people navigate just the horrible disease of addiction.
Thank you, and I really appreciate you guys being here, taking the time. And for those that are online, I appreciate you guys and you guys here. We're going to record this, so you know you're going to get any questions at the end. Before people ask if it's personal, you may want to ask. So I'm going to go ahead and get started into the questions. Some of them may be a little stacked, so feel free to elaborate. I'm going to give each group a time to answer each one and kind of put your 2 cents in from each of your perspectives. So let's start out with, what are some common misconceptions families often have about treatment or recovery? Whoever has their thoughts together first can start.
I think one of the initial misconceptions is the family's belief is that the addict is the only one with the problem, and if the addict would get better, everybody else would by default get better. I think another misconception is that the treatment program is going to fix the patient so they don't have a problem anymore. I've listened to a lot of family members say things like, you know, I really don't like you using those amphetamines and those downers, but if you want to have a drink now and then, that's perfectly okay. Just control it, would you? So I think there's lots of misunderstanding about what treatment is, as well as what recovery looks like.
Yes, I would definitely agree with that. I kind of liken the family members to kind of the forgotten piece of the puzzle, like you spoke of, and it's just hard to help them see that their loved one isn't the only one with an issue. And so that's what became evident for me as my son was walking through his journey. So that's why I'm hoping to help others see that once the whole family can get healthy and back on track, it really helps with the addict as well.
Karen and Vince, do you have anything you want to add to that, or?
One of the biggest things I would say is a journey. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon, and it's gonna keep reoccurring. And I think lots of people facing it for the first time, if they go into treatment, think, okay, mine's gonna be the one that succeeds the first time. So it's about learning how to love your child through all of that and continue to love them and help them get support.
You know, once they go into recovery, it's almost a sigh of relief for parents because they're there for 30 days and we know that they're safe. We know that they're okay. So that's kind of a peacetime for us. But when they get out and, you know, I mean, I'm a firm believer 30 days just is not enough. And because it is a journey and it can take years at different times. There's so much more help that's needed or resources needed, you know, that is fortunately it's available here in Knoxville. And but it's a journey that we go through. And just because we feel that safety, when they get out, that's the critical time of what do we do now?
Okay, thank you. In that same realm of providing support during that time, can you explain what the difference is between supporting a loved one and enabling their harmful behaviors? And maybe what are some subtle ways enabling may show up that families don't even realize?
I'll jump right in there. You know, we love our children. That's what what parents do. And we want to make things easier for them. And there's so many times when we're enabling them and we're not even thinking about it, but not allowing them to be the adults that they actually are. Doing little things like, oh, let me make that appointment for you, or I can help you with that. And sometimes we have to learn that we have to step back and be a cheerleader about supporting them and telling them, yeah, you know, I'll be glad to help you if you ask questions, or I'll give you resources, or just being able to say, you can do this. If you don't know the answer, you can ask me. I can help you with what I think. But, you know, biggest thing for me, I think, is just there's little things we don't think about as enabling, like, and I don't know, maybe even more so before they get treatment, when we're just doing things for them that keeps them from having to do things themselves. That's a big thing. But the things that we wouldn't think about as enabling, or could be things as little as I'm filling your car up with gas, or I'm gonna provide you a meal, or keeping things for you while you get your act together, or whatever. So there's just, I don't think as many parents, they kind of figure out pretty quick, I'm giving them money. That's what they think about with enabling. But there's so many little things that they don't think about that also enables them to continue in the journey that they're in.
This is one of the questions that comes up in our family group. Most frequently is mostly parents struggling with what is enabling. How do I know if I'm enabling or if I'm actually helping? And it's a constant struggle. We have one lady who that was her whole issue. Her adult son would call and she would run. He would call because it was an emergency, whether it was or not, it was an emergency. She believed that there was nobody else who was willing to help him, and she was it. And so she would run. There were some times when the group sort of helped her not run so quickly, but that was her process. She understood enabling, she understood codependency, but putting it into practice was a whole different deal. And this went on until she hadn't heard from her son in several days, and went over to his apartment and found him dead on his couch. he'd overdosed from alcohol. And she was surprised. She never expected to see that coming. She had talked about how that was a possibility, but it never was a real possibility. The rest of the group sort of saw that as well. That, well, we really never thought it would happen to one of our kids, kind of a thing. So I think people think they know what enabling is, kind of what you're talking about. Well, I don't give them money anymore. Yeah, I'll buy them some groceries or I'll put some gas in their car, but I don't give them cash anymore. Well, that's good, but let's take this a little further. I think part of what we were talking a little earlier, and I said, I think the first part of recovery is you have to learn how to talk. You have to learn what your truth is. You have to learn how to talk. And I think that's true for family members as well as the addict. And I think the family member has to learn how to say no. You have to learn how to say no. Trust your gut and say no, and trust that your family member will get the peace they need. But it's hard.
I think that a lot of times, like they talked about gas and other things, I'm not giving them cash. There have been times when, as a parent, you'll fill up those gas cans because, again, you're not giving them cash, but they will take them and sell them for buying them an outfit supposedly for this job interview they have. They can sell those clothes too. So a lot of times, since we're not in that world, we don't realize that that's enabling. So one of the things I always say is, which goes against our very nature, is we want them to be uncomfortable. I don't want them to be comfortable in their addiction. I want them to be uncomfortable so they will get to the point where they seek help. I don't want to buy them that sleeping bag when it's freezing cold, because maybe if they're freezing cold, they'll go get some help. I don't necessarily want to buy them a meal every time they turn around, because maybe they'll go somewhere where they can be provided meals in a rehab. So it's just, it goes against everything. I call it living in the land of the opposites, because it's almost the opposite of what you as a parent or a wife or whatever would normally do.
You know, if I can add, one of the topics that we discuss in our support group is delayed emotional growth. And this is actually the age of what they are now. They could be 30, 35, 40 years old, but they are actually kind of at the mental age of they were when they started, which could be 15, 16, 17. I know that's kind of what our son was faced with. And so enabling, I believe it's helpful that when you start to try to treat the child the age that they are, treat them to be the adult that they are. I think when you start doing that, you start enabling less and having them help with making those phone calls to the doctor or finding out a way to get gas to put in your car, different things like that. So, but enabling and those are definitely topics that have to be discussed.
And in that same realm, almost all of you mentioned how against that nature that goes when you love someone and you don't want to see them suffer, you want them to have comfort. What advice do you have for those that need advice for how to set healthy boundaries in a way that is still loving, that's still supportive, but maybe healthier for them?
I think setting boundaries, I think one of the most important things is setting boundaries has to come with consequences. So you've got to be willing to set those consequences once the boundaries are broken. Boundaries is one of the tools that a parent has to have. If we start that when they're even young, we have boundaries. But there has to be the consequences that go along with it. And that helps them to grow when they know they're going to be faced with consequences.
One of the things that comes up frequently is about what are boundaries. I'll hear family members say things like, I say, well, give me an example of a boundary that you set with your son. Well, I told my son he wasn't allowed to drive the car anymore. Well, that's not a boundary. A boundary is something you're going to do, change the way you're doing things that will impact what options they have. And folks really struggle with that. They don't, I was talking earlier, I think addicts and families share a lot in common. And one of the things both of them seem to see is that the other one is the one that needs to change, not them. So family members have to recognize the ways that they enable in order to learn how to set healthy boundaries. And it's baby steps, man. It's baby steps, because they don't get it. I'll tell them, maybe you tell your son you'll give him $20 if he'll come mow the yard for you. But if he doesn't do that, and so they earn the money, and that kind of makes sense to them. But even that's not a boundary. The boundary is, I'm not going to pay you unless you do the yard. But then the son shows up with a lot of excuses about why you can't do it today, but give me the $20 now and I'll come back this evening and mow it. And they never come back. So, I mean, they really struggle with this idea of they themselves have changes they need to make, rather than the addict needs to make changes, which they do.
They put the boundary on them instead of the boundary on themselves.
Exactly.
We go through that even with wives. I'm not, instead of saying you're not going to be allowed to be around the children, or you're not allowed to drink anymore. I don't want to be in an environment, make those I statements that we talk a lot about. I don't want to live in a home where there's drinking and chaos. I am trying to protect the children or whatever. And then either you have to remove yourself from that situation if it continues. And there again, we go back to follow through on the boundaries. It's just a suggestion. If you don't follow through, it's not an actual boundary. So if you're not willing to be in a home where there's alcohol and chaos and yelling or whatever the case may be, then you have to remove yourself or ask them to leave. And that's where kind of the rubber meets the road if they're an active addiction.
I think it's okay to say to them, I love you, and that's not going to change. But there are boundaries. I can't have you at my house if you're using, or you're not allowed to see the children if you're not in the right state of mind. And that doesn't mean I don't want you to have those. It means I love you fully well. In fact, I said, probably some of your parents of addicts have really learned what true love, unconditional love is, because you have to learn to separate the addict from your child and see the child for who you love and not for the things that they're doing. And that makes a big difference in their recovery and yours too, because you get to a point where you can say, I love you, but you're hurting me, and I can't allow you to keep hurting me.
I would add that just like the addict isn't going to be able to just not use on their own. They need help. They need other recovering people around them. And I think family members need the same thing. They need other recovering family members around them so that they find out they're not alone, and they get a lot of support for these changes, these crazy changes they're being asked to make that don't make any sense to them.
And I've seen time and time again, family members be able to keep those boundaries because they had that community, because they had those people around them saying, you've got this. There's just something about that, just like we want for the recovering addicts, we want them to have their community.
Right.
And their people cheering them on. And then we want the family members to do the same, to be able to do the same.
Great points. So kind of in that same realm of communicating and offering motivation, what are some effective ways to talk to someone about getting help? Are there things that a family should avoid saying or doing when trying to encourage treatment or support for their person struggling?
I would say forcing them would probably be one of the things that comes to my mind first, because you can get them the resources, and there's something about them to a certain degree taking ownership of that makes it a little more lasting, as opposed to I'm picking you up tomorrow and you're going here. You know, not that we can't have interventions, and there are people that are trained in doing that. But one of the things that I had to get to with my son is it really needed to be his idea, which I thought he would never do. I swore up and down he probably would never do it. But it got to where the only conversation I was willing to have with him is, how can I help you get into recovery? Where can I take you? I'm happy to take you if it involves recovery.
One of the conversations that we have with my family group is they want to know what to do if the person gets arrested. They have a history of bailing them out of jail because their child or their spouse makes lots of promises about changes that they never follow through. So they're hesitant to bail them out of jail or get them out. And I say to them, well, you know, one option would be, I would be happy to bail you out of jail if I can take you from the jail to the treatment program. You make that decision, I'll be happy to come bail you out. And I think some families feel some relief in that, but they are always surprised when they say that to their family member and the family member says, no, thanks. And then the hard thing is, how do I leave them there? That's what they need help with. How do I leave them there?
Yeah, and
Because they've chosen to say no. Yeah.
I've even had my son, once I did pick him up, say no.
Yeah.
So then you have to decide if that's a deal breaker, if you'll do it again.
Right. Right.
So that's where that comes in. What's the track record so far? And did they leave you high and dry when you did pick them up?
Right. I think the addict has no trouble at all saying no to the family.
Yeah, right.
But families have a lot of trouble saying no to the addict. And it's because of this I love you thing. I think that's really what that's all about. But I think they really have to learn how to say no, set those boundaries and say no. Sorry, Vince.
Our son went through probably 6 to 7 different rehabs. So he relapsed that many times. And it was just one of those things that it's so hard once they go through that, and we think that everything's going to be okay. But then when he gets out and he has the same friends, the same contacts, the same phone, I mean, so many different things that pushes him back into where he was. You know, he didn't last very long once he got out. But it's important you can't force someone into rehab. It's just as, you know, and like Bill was talking about earlier, you know, it's just as hard for an addict to walk into a rehab center as it is a parent to go to a support group. You know, you both have to be at a certain point in your life that you got nowhere else to turn, and that, you know, for an addict, this is killing you, that your life has to change, that, you know, the parent, we talk about the 3 C's often. The parent gets to a point, you know, that we have to understand in so many ways that we didn't cause it. We can't control it, and we can't cure it. And when we get to that point, you know, when we kind of give it all up and we're on our knees, what in the world do we do now? That's when we get to a point of walking through and trying to get help. And like y'all were talking, you know, it's that support group. Mm-hmm. It's having that, just understanding that you are not alone. Just as the addicts have the meetings, I know at the Gateway, they have just a tremendous resource of different meetings and different things. But because there's safety in that, they are not alone. It's the same way with Bill's group or our group or Jennifer's group, you know, that we have that we can talk to each other because we've lived it.
I also think, just gonna add just a little bit there, I think the addict needs to have a little bit of say-so if you're forcing them into treatment of where they're gonna go. Because at least that way, and we've talked about this before, you know, it may not be the place you want them to go, and you may know in your mind that this is not the best thing for them. But at least they feel like they had some control in what they did. And if it doesn't work out, they can't throw it back on us that we made them go there, you know. They can say, well, that wasn't the right place for me or something. So, you know, we can't forget that they're humans and they have opinions too. We just don't often agree with them.
It makes me, if I can, it makes me think of I was doing an intervention with this girl and her parents at Gateway some time ago, and she, by golly, wasn't going to treatment. I can't go, I'm not, and she just had her heels dug in. And of course, the parents are going, well, you have to because of this and that, blah, 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 blah. And it went on and it went on, and it almost got painful. It went on so long. And I finally said, enough. She's not gonna go. Stop, just stop. And mom and dad kind of sat back and that girl went, okay, I'll go. All she needed was for everybody to stop telling her to go. And as far as I know, she went and did fine. Because you're right, they need to feel like it's their idea. She made it with her idea, and I think in a couple of hours she was on a plane out west somewhere. And I do want to bring up another component of this, because I don't think you can talk about treatment without talking about payer sources. One of my frustrations is insurance companies don't see that this is a relapsing disease, that people need more than one treatment. Most people need more than one treatment. They may go a couple of years without a treatment, without another one, but generally they're going to need more than one. And I really wish insurance companies and payers would get on board with this as a relapsing illness, just like lots of other relapsing illnesses out there, as opposed to, you know, you get one and done kind of deal. It's one of my frustrations. So
Next session is actually about paying for treatment.
excellent.
So you want to come?
I'll be here.
So we talk a little bit about that as a barrier, because it's a huge barrier.
It's a huge barrier.
And so we have some subject matter experts about that too. So if you want to come ask questions, please do. Okay, so I think you guys are answering my next one. So I'll move on to, so managing expectations when they are going into treatment centers or things. What should families know about the ups and downs of the recovery process?
About the treatment process or the overall recovery process?
The stages that they might, and like what stages of change throughout their family should they be expecting or might experience?
Well, everybody, now this is just my opinion, but my experience has been everybody gets pushed into rehab somehow. Nobody just kind of wakes up one day and says, hey, I think I'll go to rehab. They get pushed there for financial reasons, legal reasons, family reasons, health reasons. So I think it's about sort of getting people to treatment is really sort of about managing that process to help them see what's going on and that there is a way to get well. But the process of treatment is really pretty fascinating. People go forward and take 3 steps back, and go forward some more and take 3 steps back. That happens all the time. People leave treatment, they come back to treatment. It's a crazy process. I mean, people don't just, it's like we've gotten rid of the bug, now you're better. The bug is around for a long time, a long time.
Well, the family groups are the same way.
Yeah.
You know,
They are.
we enable, and then swear we're never going to enable again.
Right.
And then 2 days later, we're back at it.
Right.
So like you said earlier, there's similarities in that. And, you know, oddly enough, I do know people that have gone to treatment and have been, that's it for them. Not very many. That's very, very, very few. But I think as a family member, you think automatically, oh God, this is gonna be great. And actually our topic tonight at our family group is what happens in recovery, because they think just because you take the alcohol out or just because you take the opioid out, that everything's gonna be great.
Right.
And even though that sobriety is a wonderful thing, that's not the end all be all. We talk about bringing them from functioning to flourishing. how they can truly flourish in life and truly live the life because we're Christ-centered that God would have them to live. So, but it is, you talked about a marathon, not a sprint. Either way, right? No matter how you slice it, for everyone, it is a process and it takes a while. I used to hate that word. I thought if one more person says process.
But it's true, and it's the only, for the addict, the getting clean is the easy part. When they walk away, usually from a treatment center, they are on top of the world, but then they get hit back in the face with the same things that got them where they were, and so there's gotta be some support. Most of them will learn pretty quickly, or a lot of them learn. I don't know, that was our problem with our son. The reason he couldn't get past getting clean was because you have to make steps and have support to do the rest of it. Because if not, you fall back into your old habits. And for some of them, could be some type of mental health issue that they just can't keep on top of. Or it could be just not having the right friends. But parents also get into that, well, I'm not enabling them anymore if I give them a place to live because they're clean now. But some of that is trying to get them to those, when we talk about delayed emotional growth, they don't have the adult coping skills to know what they need to do. So trying to help them find support and learn how to do things without doing it for them is very important.
If any of you guys have anything to add to this, what advice would you give for, maybe they're not adults yet, or they're young adult, and you have another child living in the home that's not using substances? How do you support both in those situations? Or what advice would you give a family experiencing that kind of situation?
It's tough for siblings, and especially siblings that are not using. We talk about the parents, the heartaches that parents go through, and it is, when you see your child suffer like that and are using and actively using, it breaks your heart. And especially when they get to the point that there's nothing they can do about it. But how does it affect the siblings, the brothers and sisters that are in there? In our group, we've got some siblings that come that are actually there for their the ones that are using, their brothers and sisters that are using in their house. And it's just it's just something that affects everyone in there. And it takes that, how to go about that and to just navigate through that as a family is just, it's tough. It's tough. It takes a lot of understanding. It takes a lot of talking. It takes a lot of just one-on-one time with them. So many of our, with our son's addiction and his brothers and sisters, they saw us spending so much time and money and effort on him that it affected us in a lot of ways. His addiction became our identity because that's all we thought about. It affected our work. It affected our life. Everything was geared toward what's the next shoe that's going to drop, the bomb that's going to next go off, that 3 o'clock call at night. And our other children, saw all of that, but they kind of felt left out in a lot of ways. So now, they understand it now because they have their own children and they know the love that we had for our son. But it's painful to go through. And I think it takes a lot of love, and parents have to, that's why support groups are so important and necessary to talk through that, to be able to talk, what do we do with our other kids? And we talk about that often in our group, but what do we do with the other kids, and how can we help them to understand what we're going through or what we've gone through?
Couple of comments. First of all, statistically, we know two things. We know the longer people stay involved in treatment, the greater the likelihood is of long-term recovery. The other thing we know is that the more involved the family is, the greater the likelihood is of long-term recovery. My ideal treatment program would be to admit the entire family for 2 weeks. You're going on vacation. You know, you go on vacation for 2 weeks, you all stay in the same motel room. So we're gonna do group therapy with the whole family and help people connect that way. Because it really is a family illness. This isn't about just the addict getting well. The family, like Vince is talking about, the family has to learn how to help the addict without ignoring the rest of the kids. And the rest of the kids have to learn they're part of this process. If the addict is dad, then, you know, the same dynamics occur. So I would try to figure out a way to get insurance companies to pay for the whole family to be admitted. Everybody go through treatment together. That sounds crazy. And so I know that there are people out there shaking their heads saying it'll never happen, it can't happen, but I think it can. Honest to God, I think it can.
With the amount of money that is spent on addiction and the amount of money either through government or just all the grants and all the work and a lot of that, some of that stuff is being taken away. But the amount of money that's being spent on that, I mean, I could see that could be another avenue of, because it's about the child, it's about the person, it's about the addict getting well.
About the family getting
About the
well.
family getting well, yeah, yeah.
I would say that's another area that boundaries come in. We talk a lot about boundaries,
Yeah.
but one of the things that we chose in our house was not to have that chaos and not to have it take away from the blessing of the rest of the family. I didn't want it taken away from my daughter, from my grandkids, from the things that I should be doing at that point in my life. And that I'm sorry that my son was choosing to do this. That kept him out of that, out of Christmas. Our situation one year was that he showed up messed up, and I had already set the boundary that if he shows up messed up, he has to leave. I'm not doing that to our family celebration. So it was a boundary that we had set going in, to make those plans going in and to choose to focus on the other siblings that were doing adulting and doing the right thing. So, and just honoring that for them, which is very difficult because your focus tends to be on the squeaky wheel. So again, living in the opposites, my focus, I purposely and intentionally put my focus into the other siblings and grandkids, as opposed to, especially during family holidays, which we all know are big triggers and big issues, weddings, birthdays, whatever. So I think it's good to have boundaries ahead of time and to be intentional.
So you all have talked a lot about how important having support networks are and how much that can affect their success as doing family healing. So can you speak to what someone should look for, try to avoid when seeking a support group, and how families can find reliable information and avoid any misinformation about treatment and recovery? In the world right now with social media, there's a lot of different types of support out there. So what should they look for, or maybe try to avoid when they're searching for their area of support?
You know, I think about stories that I've listened to people who have completed treatment and are now looking for 12-step meetings to go to in their community. And I say to them, finding a 12-step meeting is like buying a pair of blue jeans. You just don't go in the store and grab a pair off the shelf and take them home. You go try them on. So you find a bunch of 12-step meetings, you try them out. You'll find some where you feel like you fit, and you'll find some where you feel like you don't fit at all. But you're only going to do that by going to as many meetings as you can, which is actually a really healthy thing for them to be doing. And I think families can do the same thing. They can look for family support groups, Al-Anon meetings, and others like a Gateway and that sort of thing. But the more they find, the more they look at, the more help they're going to get, and they're more likely to find where they fit. Not everybody fits everywhere.
I would echo that because we probably had people that have come, and I have people that have been there for 4 years. And then I have people that come a couple of times and then maybe that's not for them. Maybe they go to a different group. Maybe they don't feel like they need a support group. A lot of times they might come back, but it's kind of like therapists. You can't just automatically go to one therapist
Exactly right.
and get the help that, it's just such an individual thing. So, like you said, look around. Where are you comfortable? You know, when you walk in, you like the atmosphere, you like people, you like the material that's being discussed. You know, Celebrate Recovery, Al-Anon, other family pals. There's so many good ones out there that just see what works for you. And it doesn't mean another group is bad. It just means that just like treatment centers, what works best for you in your situation.
And I echo all of that because we as a family, we tried a lot of places out. You got to find what speaks to you and what fits for you.
Do your research. You have to do your research. Find out what is the best program for you as that parent. You know, if anyone that's listening to this, you know, I would highly encourage, you know, to go to a reliable place. You know, look at, I would have to say the Gateway. Go to the calendar, the weekly calendar at the Gateway. Find out what's right there's a program there for anybody in any situation, no matter what they're in, what stage of addiction they're in, or if they're recovering, or, you know, what's the after steps to recovery, or what does it look like to get a job? What does it look like? You know, how do you go through an interview process if you've got red flags? I mean, there's just a ton of different things. I mean, that's one of the best resources, I think, in Knoxville that we have.
Mhm.
Are there other local or national resources for families affected by substance use that we've not already discussed that you'd like to throw out there for people if they're looking for one?
Well, I too, sometimes say check with your treatment center. That's where my first experience was with family group, and what made me feel like that's what I wanted to pursue, to bring purpose for my pain, was because the treatment center my son was in offered a family group, and ironically it was during COVID. And so it was online, but I still got so much out of it. And I was on there, like they offered it 3 times a week. I was there 3 times a week. So a lot of times the treatment centers were an intensive outpatient at Renew. So we offer that because not just helping the addict, but we want to help the families as well, kind of a full circle. That's an option.
And there's nothing wrong with calling treatment programs and just asking what kind of resources are out there. You don't have to have somebody in treatment there to ask the question. If you know somebody's in.
We're telling people that aren't, you don't have to be in Renew Clinic for your family members to come to our support group. So that is very true. A lot of treatment centers have support groups that include anybody. Anybody can come to our family group.
I think now with the internet and the way you can search, you'll get a lot of things out there. And then you just got to do a little bit of exploring to see what's good for you. Because, I mean, we've had people show up at our meetings and we say, how did you find out about us? And they say, well, I was just Googling and your program came up. So, which is good because it's hard to get information out to encourage people to come. So.
And I just have one more question before we start the Q&A part. If anybody else has questions, start thinking of them. If you could just give one piece of advice to families just starting this journey, what would it be?
Share. I would say, the hardest thing we ever did as a family was actually opening up and sharing with other people that we had a child that suffered from addiction and a lot of other things. But once we got to that point that we opened up, we found out we were not alone. Half of our peer group had some knowledge of that or had dealt with the same thing. But then that way you can start seeing where you can, getting help for you. You're not by yourself. I think most of us are out there for a long time thinking this is our problem and we have to figure out how to solve it. And it's really hard when you feel like you're on an island.
Same with the addict. They're in isolation.
Right.
And we do the same thing, isolation, guilt, shame. And so I would definitely echo that. Find your people. I always liken it to the fact that fortunately, I've never been through chemo and cancer, but I can sympathize with somebody, but I can't relate on that same level. So when you find people that are walking the same journey and fighting the same battle in addiction, there's just something empowering about that and encouraging about that. And you cry together, you laugh together, and you're able to just stay strong when you need to stay strong. So I would find your people and talk about it. Because in this day and age, almost everyone's been impacted in some way by addiction. Unfortunately, they either know somebody, even if it's not their family member or their neighbor. So talking about it.
And in fact, talking about it and asking for help tends to lower the anxiety, tends to lower the difficulty. It gets a little easier to share that. Many people just want to keep it hidden. It's nobody's business kind of thing. But I think the more we reach out to our church, to our neighbors, our coworkers, whoever, we do find those resources. We do find people who are, I mean, we're not the first ones to walk this road. There's a lot of people. We're not the only ones on this road, There's a lot of other people on the road. We just have to be willing to find out who they are. Just ask them.
Community is so powerful that when we get together as a group, Karen and I talk about it. A lot of times we'll have a new person come into our meeting, and a lot of times, we can't get to them, but our group comes around and loves on them, and just makes them feel welcome and just talks to them, and we eventually do get around to them, but it's just what the group does, and that's that community I'm talking about that supports each other. We know what they're going through.
I think a lot of times they're surprised too. I see surprise on people's face when they share something and everybody's going, yeah, or they say something and they're just like, yeah, just something about that can bring you joy inside that, that release of and it's hard to step into that at first. It took me forever to even say the word addict. And once I finally was able to say it and share it, it really can make a big difference.
I'm going to open up, if you're online, if you want to place your questions in the chat. Do our people in person have any questions?
Would you all?
I don't have any questions. I do want to add, it's been refreshing sitting here. I talk to a lot of families who don't end up in a place where they can find this sense of peace, this place of openness and ability to just kind of find their own recovery process. I mean, I think for so many families, I don't want to put a percentage, but it would be in the 90th percentile. It's like family members, in my experience, just have not been, by and large, willing to do the work that it takes to find their own recovery. And it's upsetting. It's hard to watch because I know the relief that comes through community and through sharing of pain and sharing of experience. And I'm glad that you all are doing what you're doing. And every time y'all share, I'm in the middle of working with different folks. And I'm thinking, man, I hope this family's watching. I hope this, because there's so many things that you all share that are just nuggets of wisdom that lead to the relief that everybody's seeking. The problem is families seem to think the relief comes when the addict stops drinking or using. And that's that's just a very, very small tip of the iceberg, you know, and, I don't know, I'm grateful to be in this room and to hear everything you had to say and one other thing I would leave, and you all talked about this, you didn't tie it in. When you were talking about enabling, I think one of the things that families, and I see this so often do, part of the enabling process is keeping secrets for the addict. I mean, and it's lying for them. It's not telling the truth. When someone says, how are you? Well, how's Johnny doing? You know, well, Johnny's doing great, or whatever it is. And it's all a sham. It's all a lie, but it's part of that enabling. And I think that is enabling too. And I think that we all recognize that you all talked about it in your own experiences. But I think starting to tell the truth, you'd mentioned that earlier, is like when someone says, how's Johnny doing? Just to use Johnny as an example. Johnny's not doing so good. Johnny's struggling with this or that. I mean, it's when we can begin to say those things, then stuff starts moving. Stuff starts spiritually moving, stuff starts emotionally moving. And then even things physically start moving at times. So
Our clinical director says, he did a little clip on honesty, and he said, our secrets keep us sick. So that has always stood out to me as a parent or walking alongside a loved one. You know, the wife will say, well, you get mad if I, say anything, or it could ruin his career if I do anything. And they didn't do that. Their choices did that. So.
I recently had an experience where this is a family member of mine who has been in and out of, mostly out for the last several years, but for the last 4 or 5 years has been ended up in a detox program 4 or 5 years ago. And then most of this time since has been not in recovery, but riding this weird, like going to 1 or 2 meetings a week, but continuing to drink and use the whole time, just this miserable place to live. And he ended up in a detox center here a little while back. And he'd been there 2 or 3 days, and everybody was so relieved and so at peace that he was there because he's safe. And then 2 or 3 days in, he decides, I'm leaving. This is BS, whatever. And he gets an Uber from the facility to the airport, and he's getting drunk at the airport waiting to fly home. And I get a call from his wife who says, what do I do? And I said, well, you have to make coming home more uncomfortable than staying in treatment. He said, well, how do I do that? And I said, tell everybody. Tell everybody. Right. Pick up the phone and call everybody that means something to him and tell them what's going on and encourage them to call him and ask him to stay. Yeah. She wasn't willing to do it, and I ended up doing it because he's a family member of mine, and I don't know, God told me to do that. And he ended up staying, and the family was so mad at me. They're over it now, but they were so mad at me because I aired their dirty laundry. And I said, girl, your dirty laundry's been flying in the front yard for years. What are you talking about? I didn't air anything. Right. I just was willing to say what needed to be said.
Well, I think too, they think it's not their story to tell. Like, it is your story.
Yeah.
You're living it as well.
Yeah. That's right.
As a wife, as a husband, whatever, it is your story too.
Yeah.
So.
But it's that fear of what will other people think. So many people stuck. I'll stop talking. I really, everything you've said resonates and rings true for me. So thank you.
What's your idea of the family therapy for 2 weeks? I mean, it's incredible. I have a hard time hearing like the addict. I feel like it's like, this is the problem child, and I struggle with labeling people as the addict, the person who's addicted. But I mean, I think if we're all really going to do like a deep spiritual look, we all have that issue in some way. And that's how you reduce stigma within families, within the community, is we all have this issue. It's not just the addict, but just working through like forgiveness. Not even how do I deal with the addict? It's like, What do I need to forgive them for? What do they need to forgive me for? What broken promises have I made? What broken promises, and like really working through those things. I think that you start to see, I'm going to use the word deliverance when it comes to forgiveness. These are very deep spiritual realities that I wish we had a situation like what you described, where we can actually take the time to talk through the strongholds.
Right.
I love that idea. Absolutely love that idea.
20 years ago, we called this a family disease. 20 years ago, we did that, but we're not treating it like that.
Yeah.
It's still the addict, it's still the alcoholic. Now, we get some family sessions that go on, and we get some family weekends and treatment programs, but we're not really treating the family. We struggle to treat the family. Families struggle to see that they need help. I got this.
Yeah.
Is what I hear most of the time,
How's that working?
get him sober and I'll be okay. I mean, that's just their denial. They don't see their part in this whole process. And how many people, when they finish treatment, they've done a great job, they're the star of the program, and they go home and a week later they relapse. What happened? Well, the family happened. Not that the family caused it, but they went back into a system that wasn't designed to help facilitate their recovery.
Right.
We talked about that
I love
very
that.
thing. We talked about parents being triggered
Yeah,
last week, and it's almost like a light bulb went on for a mom.
Yeah.
Well, I might be. Not that you can be responsible for everybody's triggers, but once the family starts getting healthy, then it helps them to want to be healthy.
right. Well, to go back to what Webster was saying, I think we live in a culture where we're taking care of everybody else's feelings instead of our own. I'm going to talk in a way that I don't upset you somehow. So I can't be honest with you. That's one of the things I hear from family members and addicts more than anything else. I can't be honest in my family. Well, what's stopping you? Well, my mom's going to get hurt. My dad's going to get angry at me. My sister can't. I mean, I'm stuck. I'm stuck in this. Huh?
Who created those rules? And that's very Western, way to relate to one another. And, the Bible says wounds from a friend can be trusted. An enemy multiplies kisses. Like there's a lot of wisdom in that.
There is.
And it's should always be driven by love. Always. But yeah, I think that even like how we as a society like relate to one another create more of the problem in our culture,
Sure.
So, anyway, love that idea. Just had to say that.
All right, we had a question from someone in the chat, if we could send your contact information to them so they can refer people. But real quick, can you just each talk about your programs and how, if there's any eligibility requirements, like if it's for certain, like if it's only for parents, if it's for, and how best to get connected with your services?
We represent Pals of Addicted Loved Ones, which is a national group. And there's a great website, if you don't remember anything else, palgroup.org. And there's a ton of information on there. And it started out in the West, out in Phoenix, Arizona, and it's kind of moving this way. But this program, PALS, is more well-known than Alcoholics Anonymous here, or Al-Anon, that most parents are familiar with. But it's a faith-based program. Anybody can attend as long as they're 18 or older. And we have parents, we have spouses, we have siblings, and even close loved ones, can come as long as any sober member can attend, 18 or over. We meet, it's Karen and Vince Johnson. We meet at Fellowship Church on Tuesday nights at 6:30 to 8:30 and on Middlebrook Pike. And Vince and Karen Johnson at gmail.com gets us.
I don't know. I mean, I really don't. I mean, programs sort of have their own requirements. I think what people do is they get online and just start looking. I think they have to ask questions like, what sort of clients do you do best with? What sort of clients don't do well at your program? Those kinds of questions. How long does it last? And the longer the better. How significant is your family component of your treatment program? There are some populations that treatment programs have special programs for, like healthcare professionals, physicians, nurses, those kinds of folks. And if the client is a person like that, then you would ask, is there a specific program for them?
How do people get into your program if they want to?
Well, I'm not working in a program anymore. Oh, the Monday night group. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
So, just come down to the gateway on
I'm
Monday.
sorry.
Sorry. Wait a minute.
I was like,
I'm retired.
yeah, here's a support group. If people
I know.
identify with what you said today and would like to follow up with you, how can they?
They can
Sorry.
come to the gateway on Monday evening. We meet from 6 to 7, is that right? 6 to 7:30, but most time we go till 8. We've got about a 2-hour window in there. It's a confidential group for family members, and anybody is welcome. If you have a family member or a friend that you're concerned about and don't know how to help, come join us. You can call me if you would like to. You can I give out a phone number?
Yeah.
865-773-4568. You can call me and I'll be happy to tell you about it. You can call the Gateway and talk to Webster. They'll give you information about it. It's a good little group. It's not a big group. Currently, it's a good little group. It's a good supportive group. And they're getting really good at helping each other out. They're confronting each other. They're praising each other. They're doing a really good job with each other.
I'd like to add, just to back up with Karen's, is with the PAL group. For anyone that's watching, you can go to palgroup.org and you can go to find a meeting, and that would be any meeting, what's available around the Johnson City area, the Chattanooga area, the Nashville area. So you can find a group, and certainly Knoxville, and that'll have our numbers. I don't mind anyone calling me as well. My number is, again, it's Vince Johnson. It's 615-476-6890. And that's something that, I tell people all the time, I will answer a number I don't recognize.
Did you say 476-6890?
Yes, 476-6890.
Thanks, Jennifer?
She's on it.
She saves me. All her note taking.
Well, we have a group that meets the first and third Wednesdays of each month at Renew Clinic off Western Avenue. And you can go to our website, renewknoxville.com, and go through that way. You can call me at 865-224-8020, which is the Renew line, and they'll get a hold of me. Or you can email me. Are you with me?
Okay, I got it. 224-8020.
Or you can email me at Jennifer, Jennifer, Rokisky, here's the tough part, ROKISKY @renewknoxville.com. And Hannah has that also.
Yeah. And later, if you're watching this in the future, too, and you'd like to get connected, or you have interest in joining Alter Knox, this specific team that's hosting this today is the Access to Recovery team. We address any kind of barriers to accessing recovery support services, treatment, things of that nature. And so if you're interested in participating in that or one of our other, is it 5 implementation groups now?
Yes.
Is that 6? So 5 implementation groups. We also have some about judicial diversion, housing. Sharina is usually your contact for that, but she's not here right now. So feel free to send myself or Pam an email. My email is very easy. It's Hannah with an H at the end, .Hinkle, HINKLE @knoxcounty.org. So feel free to reach out to us. I really, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna tell them that, a little bit about our services is we have that, family group, and it's for anybody. We have friends sometimes that aren't necessarily family, but they're still concerned about someone who's struggling with addiction. Parents, siblings, wives, husbands, we have just about all walks, that come. And, I also meet with people one-on-one if they have specific needs or if it's something that might go beyond what the group time allows. I meet with them one-on-one as well.
Is there a fee for that?
There is no fee, and your loved one does not have to be in Renew to, access those things, okay?
I knew people would ask if there's a fee. Well, thank you guys so much for sharing. I know that it's not always an easy topic to discuss. It's not always comfortable for us to discuss how that affects families in a way, but I hope that whoever this conversation reaches, they feel more connected and supported just from this alone. And so I appreciate you guys taking the time so much, and thank you to everyone watching it now and in future, I guess. I appreciate you as well. Okay, thanks.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.